We are live. Okay, good day, everybody. Welcome to EarlyBirds Weekly Explorer webinar. My name is Chris Poria. This webinar series is run by EarlyBirds team to promote disruptive leaders, especially innovators. And we are mostly focusing on startups and scale-up companies who have a minimum viable product or more. Okay, so today our guest is a startup from Australia called Cydarm, founded in 2017. Cydarm has built a case management platform for cyber incident response. Cydarm counts organizations in state, federal government, defense, energy, and education sectors, as well as managed security service providers amongst its customers. So let's welcome Ben Waters, who is a co-founder and chief operating officer of Cydarm. Ben has over 10 years of experience in cybersecurity industry, providing security advisory services into some of the largest organizations in Australia. And before joining Cydarm, helping grow the business. Ben will share Cydarm's story and solutions for around 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session for approximately last 10 minutes. Attendees, please share your questions through the chat box in the meantime, and I will hand over to Ben. Ben, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. My name is Ben Waters, and thank you for the introduction, Chris. I've been in cybersecurity for a little while, probably not as long as some old hands. Probably one of the most formative experiences was at Hivent. I was an investor there and the first employee, and had the joyous experience of growing that from a 3-person company to a 20 to 30 odd person company before its acquisition by Singtel Optus. Fast forward a couple of years, and I joined Vaughan Shanks, who's in the picture on the right hand side, to help grow this startup called Cydarm. And he started this back in 2017. He founded it himself and built the MVP and raised the seed round, and then brought me on board shortly after to help grow the business side of things. We got our first customers in 2019, and despite the 2020 Melbourne COVID lockdown for 9 months, we managed to grow the business still further. Look, you've probably all seen these sorts of stats all over the place. At some stage, they start to get a little bit rubbery in terms of the exact nature of the stats. Probably the most interesting, though, is the government regulations are starting to catch up to the threat environment out there. You're starting to get things like the GDPR, which mandates up to a 4% revenue fine for a data breach. You have the Australian privacy principles, which have notifiable data breaches, and I believe the US states have a very similar sort of approach. And APRA CPS 234, which is an Australian financial regulation, which basically mandates the board has to be notified in the event of a significant incident as well. So when Vaughan started the company, he basically had an experience with a big data analytics platform that he got a demo from. And they showed, how they could capture all the incident data, display, the different connecting threats and assets that are affected by the threats. And then the demo finished, and the engineer said, "All right, that's it." And then Vaughan asked, "Well, what happens next?" And the engineer said, "Well, what do you mean?" And Vaughan said, "Well, there's this whole other broader aspect around incidents, which is not being met here. And he went out and interviewed up to about 100 different companies and asked them how they manage incidents. And this diagram you see here is broadly true of most of them. You would get procedures which would be written down on some wiki or shared drive somewhere. You might have a reporting tool that's being used to report incidents, a task management tool to sort of log what's going on. And then you've got, on the left-hand side, you've got all this data, threat intelligence, logs, alerts, other validation data that's coming in that needs to be used to understand exactly what's going on. And you have security analysts right in the middle of that, acting as a sort of human data integration layer, which is enormously challenging for them. And then on the right-hand side, you have different stakeholders that need to be informed or kept appraised of what's going on throughout the incident as well. So Cydarm aims to be in the middle of all of that. So we pull in data from all these platforms and make it easy for the operators to understand what's going on, and also to be able to communicate and collaborate really effectively with the different types of stakeholders that we have there at different levels of trust as well. We are considered a SOAR platform by Gartner's definition, so security orchestration, automation, and response. But where a lot of our competitors are focused on spinning that hamster wheel faster and faster, how do you respond to an incident? We're focused on all the other pieces around that. So how do you collaborate with different stakeholders when you've got different levels of trust and need to inform different people of different information? How do you report effectively to different stakeholders? And we have heard stories of people spending 20 hours working a day because after managing the incident, they need to go and then gather all the data from the different contributors to put together in a report. And lastly, mitigating burnout. How do you make sure that security analysts have a good working life so that they don't burn out when they are working so long and so hard on incidents? There are two kind of key outcomes that we look for in our platform. The first one on the left-hand side is that arrow from the post-incident activity back to preparation. And when you have security controls, the data from preventive security controls is not actually a useful set of data when you're trying to inform your security program. The really useful data is from security incidents, because then you can understand, well, what controls worked and what controls didn't work. And so you have a case for going back to your executive team about, well, what resources do we need to mitigate those threats? So for example, if you're seeing a lot of phishing attacks and they're being successful, you might go back and say, well, we actually need to look at maybe a new email gateway or some security awareness training for our staff. And having that data is enormously important for those stakeholders to be able to justify that expenditure. On the right-hand side, this diagram as well is from the NIST Computer Security Incident Handling Guide. Basically describes the different stakeholders that now have to be involved in a security incident. And this is both internal to the company and external to the company. And we do this by using attribute-based access control. And just like brakes on a car allow you to drive faster because you have the confidence to be able to stop, those access controls all the way down to the data items on the platform allows you to share more broadly as well. We have had some customer success, apart from the usual happy customers that we interact with daily. There was a ransomware attack in Victoria some months ago, or a couple of years ago, where hospitals got attacked by ransomware, locking up a lot of their systems, and our platform was used in the response efforts to record what was going on. The second one on the right was a consortium of cyber companies from Australia, including Fifth Domain and ourselves, basically providing a security range for red team and blue team operators to test their skills. And Cydarm again was used to track how they responded to sort of cyber attacks and recorded their findings and things like that, and measure the effectiveness of that response. that was a really, really cool exercise. In terms of our roadmap, we are looking to become a full SOAR capability. So the box on the right-hand side there, is where we want to be in terms of being able to execute a full response and remediate threats on endpoints and other things, so that we can stop a threat in its tracks. And the last thing, significant thing that we're exploring is we talked about using incident data to sort of inform security control improvement. And so we want to explore how that incident data can be used to inform risk as well, so that you can have a better view of prioritization of control improvement as well. In terms of the customers that we look for, we do have a set of industries that we like to work with. We have a number of government customers. We have an ASX 50 energy company that we work with, financial services and managed security service providers, health as well. In terms of the size of the company, generally they will have 500 or more staff with 3 to 10 SOC members in the security operations center, and a low to mid security maturity. Generally, we find if they're much larger than that, they tend to have the budget to sort of buy all the really high end platforms and tools and won't work with a startup. Buyer profiles, it'll have to be the CISO or a security manager, also the security operations center manager or SOC manager, and also have a willingness to work with a startup. So we work very, very closely with our customers. A lot of our features are actually built based upon feedback from our customers. So if you would like to do a POC, or if you know someone who would like to do a POC, we would love to get to know you. We help considerably with building integrations, providing a lot of support, and also feature co-development as well. So gathering requirements from our customers and building our platform to those requirements. Any questions?
Okay, this was quick actually. So what maybe before we start jumping into questions, what are you normally, in terms of, you mentioned that your focus is of course some of those specific organization and buyer persona, but beyond that, do you see anybody else beyond cybersecurity persona that might be playing key roles in terms of engagement and exploring opportunities with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one particular customer that's looking to bring their fraud team on board. They're a government customer. And the really interesting part about that is because of our access controls on the platform, we can have both teams working side by side and never seeing each other's cases on the platform.
Yeah.
And where they want to collaborate, they can then invite the other team to see their case, or maybe hide a couple of pieces of data, perhaps personal information about the individual involved, and still allow them to help to investigate what's going on. So the access control permissions there are really powerful to help these different types of teams work together without overexposing information. Similarly with customers, MSSPs, for example, where we're just deploying the platform for one MSSP where they have different customers. So we have multi-tenancy, so they might have a customer that has a different defense classification than their other customers. So their employees that have those clearances can then access and see the defense customer cases, but not the other SOC analysts who don't have that clearance. So things like that are really interesting use cases, and our platform is really built for them as well.
Okay, great. And we've got a question here. What are the key considerations for deploying Cydarm, and is it a SaaS or on-premise or both?
Yep. So it can be deployed in our hosted environment. We have a hosted environment in Vault Cloud in Sydney, or Canberra rather. We can deploy on any sort of public cloud provider as well. All you need is a Linux server, and it's a very lightweight platform, and we can deploy anywhere basically.
Okay.
On-prem as well.
Yeah. So if we talk about, because I know that there are other than cybersecurity people on the webinar, so what would you tell them? Why would they need Cydarm as part of their business, and how that helps that organization or a business? So what would you suggest to a business people?
Yeah. Look, there are a number of different benefits. I mean, the most obvious one is, even without a lot of the security orchestration stuff, and we have a little bit in terms of making the lives easier for SOC operators, we're still getting about 20% plus productivity improvement for the SOC operators, which is great. I suspect we'll see that improve as we go, as well as we build out the full SOAR capability. Yeah. I think probably Burnout for me is one of the most considerable ones. I mean, I've experienced Burnout as a security professional myself, and when you have people that don't have the right tools that make it easy for them to do their jobs, you do get that burnout, that sort of frustration. And the problem with that burnout is that you get staff turnover. You lose a lot of the sort of company awareness and context that someone who has experience at your company would have about who to talk to in a given circumstance, what those systems are and what information is on them. That sort of staff turnover can be a problem as well. So.
Okay, great. And guys, please keep typing your questions, or of course you can raise your hand. There should be a hand on this where you can just click on that. You raise the hand and we can open you to speak if you want to. So I'll just keep going on this, Ben. So we were talking before we jumped into the webinar that you now got also on some of the panels. So some of these Australian organizations, how they can access you, because especially some of the big organizations, they normally, and especially in the public sector, including education sector, they normally use different panels to access your capabilities. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, we have actually just signed up for Cordit, which is an Australian universities buying panel, I guess. Which was great news. We already have one university customer who uses our platform in their SOC. So I'm keen to explore how we can get other university customers on board, and perhaps, have that information sharing piece between the universities, for example, sharing playbooks or sharing indicators between that community of interest. Yeah. We also have a few resellers if you wish to purchase through a reseller, including Cydarm Solutions, which is an Australian Indigenous run organization. So we're basically contributing back to the Indigenous community in Australia as well by partnering with them.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So if any organization want to kind of explore engagement with Cydarm, what do you suggest what they should be looking for, in terms of the engagement, as well as how do they build some of the kind of a business case to buy, your capabilities?
Yeah. Look, I think, I think that most organizations will understand whether they have a problem or not in their SOC. They might find that, they don't have a good mechanism for tracking what incidents have been occurring, and they find it difficult to report on those incidents, And it's really about time. If they find that, you know, a lot of time is being spent on activities that could be better spent elsewhere, you know, come and talk to us. If it takes hours to report and not 3 clicks, you should really come and talk to us. If it takes, you know, if you don't have an understanding of, you know, the steps that your incident responders need to take for every type of incident, you know, come and talk to us. We can sort of set you up with playbooks. If you find that you need to have a lot of engineering effort to customize perhaps a standard ticketing platform for an incident response use case, come and talk to us. If you're using like Jira or something similar, we'd love to talk to you, because those sorts of platforms, you know, they're fine. I mean, they're functional, but your total cost of ownership will be higher because of the amount of engineering effort that you need to put into it. So come and talk to us if you think that, you know, this might be a custom platform like ours, or, you know, a platform specific to security operations and incident response. We'll help you there.
Yeah, great. And then you touched a little bit on the partners. So how do you work with different partners, and what kind of opportunities you see for various partners, whether it's consulting partners, the consulting companies, or system integrators, or of course somebody who's providing cybersecurity as a service kind of capability. So what do you see? What are the opportunities for these partners, and how they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably a few types of organizations that would work with us. The most obvious one is a managed security service provider. If they're running a managed SOC, we can, you know, put our platform in there, and you'll be able to collaborate more effectively with your customers by inviting them onto the platform and working on incidents together, rather than throwing it across to their ticketing platform, which we can do as well if you like.
Yeah.
We are always looking for companies that can build integrations for us, for customers. So if we go into a customer and they need integrations that we don't have the engineering capacity to deliver in a quick time frame, always looking for partners to help us, you know, do that integration work, deployment work. That'd be great. Those are really our main partners, I guess, in the industry.
Okay. Now that's great. And so you talked about a little bit about some of the, I would say, partly case studies. So would you be able to share a little bit more about, you know, the kind of use case plus case study where you have seen a specific problem, and then how your platform was deployed to solve that business challenge? You don't need to provide the name of the organization, but just a story. What was the business problem? How your solution, you know, resolved that business problem, and what customer has been doing after that.
Probably there are two. One is our energy company, which we partner with to develop the platform really early.
Yeah.
They were using an ITSM platform, and the same problems applied. You know, they didn't have the time or engineering expertise to be able to engineer it the way that they wanted, to be able to provide, you know, the right sort of user experience.
Yeah.
And secondarily, it was very challenging to be able to get data off that platform, to be able to report to their executive teams about, you know, what incidents have been occurring, you know, what they needed to do about it, to mitigate those. And so they basically tested Cydarm, you know, when we were really early on, to see if, you know, we could help. And it basically took their reporting down to no time at all, because they could automate that reporting, automatically generated for them, so that they could then just take the numbers up to their executives and report. This is the customer that had the 20+% productivity increase as well. We had a similar sort of productivity increase at a different MSSP customer. So, and they're continuing to work. Like they've seen, consistent sort of, benefits from a workflow standpoint. And they've integrated with another SOAR platform to do the orchestration automation part as well. So we've done a lot of work. They have had specific feature requests that they've asked for that we've built for them. Basically, the idea of a review capability on the platform, so that when you've got different SOC analysts of different experience levels, you can go through and look back at the junior analysts' work, check that they did the right things, and then check off that yes, okay, this case is okay. We don't need to go back and reopen it and investigate the breach further, things like that. Okay. So we work really, really closely with them.
Oh, great, Ben. Thank you very much for that. In terms of your future, what kind of activities or how your roadmap is looks like at this stage for next year or so?
Yep.
What are you planning?
Look, a lot of it is customer-led. Notionally, we are going to be pushing into the SOAR category again, like about, connecting to, say, preventive controls and, say, blocking that IP address or blocking this or deleting a phishing email from our email server, right? Those sorts of things. And we have built the core of that using Oasis Cacao, which is an open source framework, because we feel that we need to be interoperable with other platforms by using an open source framework where we want to do that. In terms of other things, I mean, we are, again, very customer led, and a few of the things that our customers wanted us to do was to build contacts and also assets on the system. So, for example, a lot of asset registers are a function of IT, but they don't sort of give you information that's useful to security folks in terms of, well, has it been compromised before? Have we seen that asset before? What information is on that asset? In the information classification of that asset, so that you can really understand what's the significance if a breach occurs to that asset. That's really important. It's very difficult to use for when you're using sort of an ITSM platform to provide that capability, where they're really interested in, well, the lifecycle of the asset more so than the criticality of the asset. How old is the asset? What version is it on? Et cetera, et cetera. Secondarily is the contacts feature. And that's really about, who has been involved in a data breach, in terms of, we use Sticks, which is a sort of a threat framework, basically, so that you can understand, okay, for a given asset, who owns that asset and who's the operator. Is the CEO? Is then the asset that critical, right? Yeah. And then secondary to that is, well, in the event of a breach, who do you need to contact to be able to resolve it, right? You might need to contact a particular IT stakeholder or an executive, or to get your breach response team together. So those sorts of things. And this, funnily enough, was requested by three different customers of ours. So it was a really obvious thing to go ahead and build for them. So that's underway, and we've got the MVP going, and we'll sort of iterate on that as we go.
Great. Ben Waters, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Really nice talking to you, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of people coming back to you. And if anybody who may not have contact details of Ben, please reach out to Jeff Penrose or myself. We will be more than happy to connect. Thank you very much, Ben, and have a good day.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Very much. Talk to you then.